Well, good morning, everybody. I'm so glad that you can be here and sharing this time together, even though we're not able to fill the place and we have our rules that we have to follow, but we still are finding the joy in the opportunities of being together and being able to share with our virtual audience too. So I'm very grateful for all of that. We're still doing our work and it's still doing good work. So we're going to have our...
Good morning and welcome to our Sunday service. From the Home Center Ministerial Team, our opening prayer from the Minister of Prayer, Reverend Joe Peinkofer. As we gather this morning with beautiful sunshine shining over Salem, and they missed that one. It's still shining, but we can't see it that well. Let us put aside our differences and problems, worries and concerns, for this morning at least, and listen with open hearts to Reverend Madge as she shares her knowledge of giving and receiving. Let her message to us fuel our love and light, compassion and forgiveness for the coming Christmas celebration. So it is, amen.
So I wanted to point out the backdrop. On the video it's not going to show up too well, but that looks like my garage with all my canning, because I love to can. I wish it looked like that, actually. I wish it was that neatly organized and that visible. I like to go out just and look at it. Look at my stuff, and it's like, oh, that's so good. Look at all those jars of all that goodness in there. And much of it is from my little garden spot. It was amazing this year. I just have one strip of a garden along the fence and 2 raised beds, and that little area, well, and a couple of tubs of potatoes, but produced over 170 pounds of produce. I weighed everything as I was bringing it in. I still have carrots and beets out there, so I stopped weighing. So I don't know what that is, but as far as weight goes, but that little spot just produced like crazy. It's amazing what you can do and with what you've got. So anyway, it was fun. So that's the outcome of my yard, sort of. A representative of. Yeah. So today, what we're going to talk about may not be too popular of a topic for some, and for others it might be just fine. So we'll see how this goes. I know in some ways we're really, really tired of talking about COVID. We're tired of talking about what we're dealing with. And I recognize that. At the same time, I keep having people asking me over and over again, what is going on behind it? What is this really all about spiritually? And so far, I've had a few ideas here and there that I've kind of shared. But it seems like to me, from where I am now, and from the months of experience with it that we've had so far, I'm starting to formulate some feelings around it and some ideas and some thoughts based on that, and thinking about it from a metaphorical and a symbolic point of view, not from all this other stuff that's going on, but from a symbolic and a metaphor. And, as more time goes by, I seem to be gaining a little more insight in that way, at least for where I am now. By now we're kind of getting used to the way things are. We're kind of past the shock. It took a long time to get past the shock of our world coming to a halt in one day, the world as we knew it. So we're getting past that. We're starting to relax a little bit, getting used to our routines. We get up to the door of the store, remember our mask, go back, stopping all the way because of the inconvenience. I did it twice yesterday. It's so funny. Now I'm just starting to laugh at myself because it is what it is, so let's just relax into it. But one thing that I'm noticing that seems to be gaining ground is a courtesy from people. A beautiful, gentle, quiet courtesy, whether it's in body language or in their words, and it feels kind of new, and new in the way that this is a conscious courtesy. It's not just, I want to do something good today so I can feel good about myself kind of courtesy, but it's like people are making a conscious choice to be courteous when they don't really have to. They don't really need to, but it's the choice of being gentler, They're making a choice to be politer, a little more polite, if politer's a word, a little more polite, a little more courteous. And it's heartwarming to notice it. It's so subtle that you almost don't notice it. You know, that person that's just stepping away just a little bit to allow you in, or slowing down in traffic because they see you've got your blinker on. And it's happening more. I mean, it's always happened along the way, but we're so busy zoning in to what we've got to do next, or they're so busy zoning into what's next, because we had such a hectic pace prior to COVID. We still have a hectic pace, but it's in a different way. Those kinds of acts were noticed, but maybe not the way they are now. But now they're just so subtle and so beautiful if we just stop and notice. That's one thing that I'm noticing. And there's been such an outward pouring of hostility and such an outward display of hostility in the world that it feels so good to have people making conscious choices for this. And they're making it, for me, it looks like they're making a conscious choice to say, I'm kind. I'm being kind to you because I'm a kind person. They're demonstrating it. They're demonstrating their kindness. I'm a gentle person. I'm not like what the news is showing or what's being demonstrated out there in the world. I'm not angry. I'm not angry. The world might be angry, but I'm not angry. I accept you as you are. These are the statements that I feel like when people are demonstrating this, that this is the message they're trying to convey, are these messages of kindness and compassion and patience. So these are small and delightful surprises, and they inspire me to do the same. They inspire me to give back in that same way. And these little deeds are not, of course, what's hitting the newsroom, because they're so subtle. But collectively, they're making a big statement. Collectively, each one of those is joining in with the next one that's just like it. And they're making a big statement. So to frame what I'm going to talk about, I want to go back to Carolyn Mace. I want to talk about something that she said a long time ago, or is Mace or Miss, or however, but I believe she pronounces it as Mace. Most everyone in New Thought and Metaphysics is pretty familiar with her. She's a very well-known person in this arena. If you don't know her, I mean, read her books, or at least you've probably heard of her. I had the opportunity in the early 1990s to attend one of her conferences up in Seattle. And it was one of the very first ones that was titled, How Our Biography Becomes Our Biology. And she was just coming out with that concept. And this concept that what we hold in our minds creates our reality. And at that time, it was so revolutionary to have that notion, to have that teaching of that. It was quite profound. And what the bleep do we know wasn't, which teaches the principles of that, it hadn't even been created yet. So this was before that. So at this conference, because it was so revolutionary and so new, this information, I was just riveted to every word that her and Dr. Seeley said for this entire weekend. I was just sitting on the edge of my chair, just mind-blowing, absorbing all this information, these new concepts, and oh my God, it was just manna for my soul, and I was just consuming it like crazy. It was really fun. I still remember it. But now, fast forward 20 years, 30 years, almost. I think we're almost at 30 years now. Woo, time flies. That was weird to say. The concept of and the knowledge that we create our reality by our thoughts is so commonplace. I mean, it's like everybody believes that now. Everybody at least kind of knows it or kind of understands it. And it's so commonplace anymore, and we throw it around as the pat answer to everything, and it's almost to nauseum anymore. So I hear somebody say it, and it's like, oh God, stop. There's a lot of things that factor into this. That's not the answer to everything. They just throw it around as something, I don't know. Anyway, that's how commonplace now this concept is, but it wasn't then. So at this conference, Carolyn also demonstrated with several national events on how collectively the collective consciousness creates certain events that we experience as symbols, as mirrors back to us of what's in the collective. one of the examples that she used was polio. And interestingly enough, that the memory of polio as an epidemic pandemic has been coming up a lot lately in comparison. Jay just used it last week in his service, the reference to that. So polio, the polio pathogen has been around for centuries and centuries and centuries. It wasn't new. It isn't new. And it's, but when our nation was crippled due to the war, they were crippled on so many levels, did it become compatible to the polio virus that was a crippling disease? This is what Carolyn was teaching us. And because of the vibrational frequency in the collective consciousness of not only the nation but the world, did this virus that had been around for a really long time and showing up, here and there, but not in an epidemic, pandemic type way. It didn't show up that way until the collective consciousness was in a crippled state. When the masses, the tipping point of the people were crippled due to the war, crippled economically, crippled spiritually, crippled socially, crippled, their families had been fractured, and, their loved ones had died, they were crippled. So there's a lot of theories around even polio, as is with COVID, whether it's man-made or not man-made. It doesn't matter when it comes to the collective, when it comes to how it's manifested. It doesn't matter. The nation, thus the people, if they weren't crippled, it couldn't have taken hold, regardless of the source of it. So I have a story within a story here. So I want to tell another story about a monk who was so beloved because of his divine energy that he carried and his divine representation, and of course, being that holy, he was very popular. Well, the other monks were quite jealous, and they wanted him out of the way because he was interfering with their plans. So they finally contrived this scheme to poison him and get rid of him, have him die. So they put poison in his drink, and they all sat around the table to eat, and just as he was reaching for the goblet, a cat ran across the table and tipped the contents onto all over the place. And he didn't partake of the poison. And later, the monks again got together. They decided to accomplish their goal once and for all, so they put the poison in his bread. Put the poison in his bread. He sat down to eat. Just as he was reaching for his bread, a crow came along and picked it up and took it off. And he had nothing to eat, but he also didn't get any poison because he didn't know it was in there. The point of the story is he was not compatible on any level with the poison. On any level. And there's many levels to be compatible with something. We can have a karmic thing. What goes around comes around. We can have a environmental compatibility. We can have soul agreement for a particular lesson. There's a lot of reasons why things come our way. For him, there wasn't any level that he was compatible with the poison, so it could not enter his body, could not enter his field in any way, because there was no compatibility whatsoever. So that's the point of that story, is to teach on a personal level that there's this compatibility thing. So to clarify, and I'm wanting to really clarify around on any level, because I get people then when I say stuff like that, then they're like, well, I have a diagnosis. What does that mean? How did I bring that in? How did I track that? Or I have this or that cancer, who knows what. But there's many ways and many reasons why things come to us. It, could be a soul agreement, could be environmental, as I said. It could be a life path. It could be something we need to learn for a higher wisdom. You ask people that have had serious cases of cancer if they would give it back, and they almost always say no, because I am such a better person today than I was then. So there's lots of things. So don't go down the path of criticizing yourself. But for the monk, there was none of those existing. They could not come to him. So now to go back to Carolyn Myss, and her teaching us about the collective mind and how it's mirrored back to us, and in relationship to this, like with the epidemic of the polio. She pointed out that the virus was able to take hold of the nation and the world because it was crippled by the war. And then Roosevelt became president, who was a crippled man who had learned to overcome his crippledness and be a very successful person, and to be able to, as they call it metaphorically, to stand on his feet. Even though he was crippled, he learned to stand in his consciousness, in his nature, in his command for who he was as a person. And thus he could lead the nation back to standing on its feet, economically, spiritually. You know, he created jobs for people so they could now feed their families. The society started to thrive under his leadership and for the creation of jobs that he did, and he led the nation back to being able to stand on its feet. But it doesn't end there. Once the nation got to a place energetically, vibrationally, in this frequency of standing on its feet, then the vaccine could be created, could be discovered, because then wellness and healing had happened enough that the healing antidote could be discovered, or the antidote to combat it. It couldn't be discovered before. It wasn't the healing or the antidote to it the nation wasn't compatible to being healed yet. Or, not that a vaccine is a healing, but it did become the thing that slowed it down and, stopped it from being an epidemic, pandemic. So in the healing of the nation came the discovery of the vaccine. But the vaccine couldn't be discovered until the nation had healed to a point of being vibrationally compatible to it. So there's something to be learned in that. So it took the healing of the individual people as they started being able to not be crippled in their mind anymore and start getting jobs and start being able to feed their family and thriving, did the collective come out of its crippled state. So it started with the individuals. It started with somebody teaching them, here's how we can do this together. And it became a compatible frequency, and then the tipping point to healing was able to take place. The healing of the individuals to the tipping point of the collective. So just for a moment, let's look at what we're dealing with today, and let's rise above politics, rise above science, rise above conspiracies, all that stuff, and let's look at the metaphor and the symbology of what we're experiencing today. And so into the symbolic mirror is what I like to call it. So right now we're experiencing collectively something that brings our awareness to what comes out of our mouth. We have to be aware of what comes out of our mouth. And that begs the question, what is coming out of our mouth that's affecting other people? And it's asking us to be responsible for what's coming out of our mouth, whether it be words or whether it's our breath. Doesn't matter. It's what are we expressing from here? What is our expression? And I believe that the most important point here is our words. I believe it's what we're expressing, and not only just because it takes breath to make words. So what words and what intentions and what vibrational frequencies do our words have that are affecting other people, that's compatible with the virus, or making that virus be compatible to exist in it. Our words are powerful. Our intentions are powerful. We all know that. We know that principle. I'm preaching to the choir here. You guys are amazing. So words are the vibrational sound of the expression of what's within us. And I'm beginning to see that what I believe is to be the symbolic or metaphorical mirror right now are these masks. You know, we're being asked to wear them in a way that, you know, they're using science to ask us to wear masks, but symbolically, we're being asked to wear a mask to filter, as a filter. And I think it's more than just our pathogens in our breath. I think it's to filter, to block this, stop, and go inward. And what is coming out? What are we being responsible for? And to slow down and reflect on what it is that we are expressing. So the symbolic filter is stopping the spewing, you know, our spit, or our words that are spewing out collectively, in the collective. There's a tipping point that's allowed that this is happening in. So I believe the masks are an opportunity to go inward and evaluate our contribution to what has been spewing out in the negative form, and what has been harming others in this activity of spewing. So I have some things and ways for myself, you know, and thinking about this, like, where am I contributing? I have a personal responsibility for me. That's the only person I'm really responsible for is me. So where's mine? And I'm finding places inside me that's like, and ways that I spew. That's, you know, there's a spewing where it's therapeutic and you're just getting something off your chest. And that's, you know, I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about just out into the world, and that doesn't even serve anything. It's not serving healing. It's just the way the world is being right now. It just spews stuff out. And so I'm working on myself. Heal thyself first. I'm taking full responsibility for what I'm spewing. But the principle of the monk is not only true for the individual, it's true for the collective. So in the collective, we each contribute to this collective energy that mirrors back to us. Individually, we're adding to it. So all of this can't happen if it wasn't energetically compatible. This wouldn't be happening if it wasn't energetically compatible with the COVID virus. And it can't happen energetically if we're all collectively at a tipping point of enlightenment, of kindness, of compassion, of cooperation. It's not about not being different. It's about how are we present in our differences with each other. So this compatibility might be, or this, the compatibility with the virus, I mean, or however we're experiencing, can be ancestral. You know, what goes around comes around. It could be the collective soul agreement to bring awareness to our personal responsibilities. It could be gaining wisdom of learning a particular wisdom that is going to be of service to the world at this time. But I believe somehow it's a combination of all of those is why we're experiencing it right now. We're here for a reason as light workers. We're here to hold the light of Christ. We're here during this collective tipping point to tip it back, to hold cooperation, to hold compassion, to hold kindness, to hold gentleness. And that's what each and every one of your jobs are. My job, your job, all of our jobs. That's why we said yes to being here at this point in time. Not to add to that negativity, but to hold the light so that it can be transformed. So I encourage us all to be responsible for what's coming out of our mouth at this point in time. Not just our breath. You know, the mask is just a symbol. As they know, you know, most of it isn't that effective, but it's a symbol. As Ruth pointed out last week, it's a symbol of unity. It's a symbol of being responsible for what comes out of our mouth, to filter what comes out. And hold the light. When we are around somebody or we see somebody being intensely negative, shine the light on them, shine divine light on that so that it doesn't permeate the collective, or at least it has an opportunity for transformation. We can shine the light of the divine mirror back so that it only goes back to them and they get an opportunity to experience what they're spewing out into the world. We can hold that mirror in a loving and kind way. And so let our words and actions be of kindness. Let the Christ light shine. Whether it's from our mouth, covered or not covered, it doesn't really matter. Let that light shine. We're having an opportunity to communicate differently. We're learning how to see a smile in people's eyes. I look at them and I think they smiled at me, but I'm not sure. Their eyes kind of squinted. So I'm trying to learn how to see things differently. The Christ light is the most powerful light that we can shine. That's our highest capacity at this point in time. Let that light transform whatever's coming out of other people's mouths, so that we can elevate this and have this so that the virus is no longer compatible with our collective consciousness, and it will just disappear because there's not a compatibility there. Or a cure will be found, or something that's real will be vibrationally equal to it. So we bring our light up, and then that which is vibrationally compatible will come and present itself. So that was my hope for today, is that we can become a little more aware of not only ourselves, be responsible for our contribution to that, but we can help shine the light for others to be transformed, and maybe they can be enlightened a little bit too. So let's just close our eyes for a moment and get ourselves relaxed. And let's just do a slight little meditation of taking in that deep breath of renewed air. And as we let go of our breath and the exhale, let us be responsible for what comes out, even in our breath. But I really want to see us being out in the world and speaking either internally to ourselves or externally to the world, and be mindful of what our words are. Be mindful of our intentions behind our words. What is the energy behind our words? And what is it that is our contribution to the collective? And let's elevate our feelings and elevate the light in our heart and elevate our soul's purpose to fulfill what we came into this world to do, and that is to hold the Christ light, to hold the light of love, to hold the light of divinity, so that the world can be transformed. Those people that are struggling, those people that are spewing can be transformed, and let it just come up so that the tipping point is the light. Then that will be our greatest gift to the world. And hold that light of love onto those places around the planet. If we see, as we look around in our mind's eye on the planet, and we see a dark place, shine the light on that dark place. Shine the light of Christ's love. Shine the light of wholeness, so that it can be transformed into a deeper lesson of wisdom, into an aha moment for them, that they'll make a choice for gentleness, make a choice for cooperation, make a choice for compatibility with the highest good for all. Whether it's individually or collectively, it all contributes. Take another deep breath and bring yourself back into the room, carrying this light with you forward into your week. This light of responsibility, this light of Christ, and the light of goodness for the world. Let it be so. Amen. All right. How are we doing?
Our closing prayer for this Sunday's morning service. God, thank you for the multitude of gifts of love and light, compassion, and forgiveness you have given us throughout the years. You have been good to us. May our practice of displaying your energies in motion create the perfect world we envision around us. So be it. Amen.
Arms around the world, around each other. Arms around the world, sisters and brothers. Arms around the world and we discover. Arms around the world, there is no other. So let us join and we will